Good morning, trade pros, or good afternoon. I hope you guys are all keeping well. Just open this guy up here quickly. Mute myself on the other channel, and let's get started. So, pretty nice session yesterday. Today's session, a little bit choppier on both of the assets we follow, rather that we're tracking for this update. So crude oil did get some good movement. However, as far as market structure is concerned, a little bit choppy. Same story for the SPOs overall. We came into the morning with a bit of a bullish bias, and we're looking for a retest of those overnight highs. Still haven't really seen that, but we did have a squawk come through here from the White House aide Schlapped, and we'll cover what he mentioned in that quite shortly. So both of the markets this morning, a little bit choppy, still pretty okay opportunity on both fronts, but a little bit more difficult, and the performance from the team will reflect that today. So first things first, let's get started. Any of the news that we're looking at, we had a couple of economic releases come through this morning. And one of those being the birthday of the founder here at Trade Pro Academy, Mr. George Papazov, turning 21 in a couple of years today, and a couple months today. So really outside of that, we had Georgie covered the majority of the news that came in at around 8:30 a.m. As far as any news that came out after, really, the only thing that was on the schedule was the natural gas storage. That came in at 119 billion versus 110 billion expected. And we also have on the agenda FOMC member Williams scheduled to speak at 1 p.m. Eastern time here today. And that is scheduled as a medium impact event. So definitely something to watch out for into the afternoon part of the session, in about 45 minutes to an hour away from where we're at the moment. So that's what we've got on the schedule. Let me just take a quick look at some of the squawks that came through today. So a couple things we saw in the U.S. session. We had U.S. President Trump mention that the decision on additional China tariffs will be made after the G20 meeting in June 28th to 29th. States are looking to make that decision in the next week or so. Also, a little bit of a squawk here from Mexico President Lopez Obrador, called for a Mexican unity event on Saturday to take place in Tijuana to defend our dignity. I also see Fed's Kaplan here, who is a non-voting dove, mentioned that job growth will need to moderate in light of tight labor markets. What are we seeing here? I'm seeing also China National Development and Reform Commission held a meeting with local governments related to rare earths. So again, back on that U.S.-China trade war. And that's really all that we see here. Georgie covered everything that came through in the overnight session. So that's what we've got there. Now let's switch over to the quote board here. We'll take a look at what the liquidity is looking like in both of these assets, what the daily change is looking like. Then we'll switch on to our pivots and then look at some key levels here on these markets. So let's get to that. Let's see, in the chat room, we've got somebody in there. Hello, Ahmed. Welcome to the stream. So let's get my screen sharing here. Let me get my handy dandy pen out. And let's get after this. So first thing first, crude oil left-hand side here, 550,000 contracts on the session so far, a little bit less than what we've been seeing on average. Daily change percentage also down 0.19% from that previous day close. Your previous day close came in at 51.68. It's the level that you see right up here. And so we are just below it. And that's why we're seeing down on the daily change percentage. Our last level here was 51.58. So about 10 cents off of that previous day close, with just about average volume there. So that's what we've got on crude. S&P 500, also a little bit less than average. We've been seeing around 1 to 1.2 million, contracts traded by this part of the session on the lower end of that side today. On the lower end of that side today, and daily change percentage up 0.09%. Very, very small amount. And you can see previous day close came in here at 28.27, and we're currently trading, the last traded price was 28.30. So we're just sitting right above that previous day close. That's been kind of a big support level on this session, and I'll get into that shortly once we get into these charts. Let's see some of these comments. Samir just made a joke about Georgie being that young. He's actually, 10 years senior from what you quoted there. But we like to think of him as 21 years plus a couple of months.
Spring chicken.
Yeah, spring chicken. It's kind of like when you get, moms calling their kids that are 2 years old, they're 48 months old. Not 48 months, 24 months old. Just a little joke on that front, make him feel young again. 30s and U20 these days. Bright Calcadev, have you guys got a live room? We sure do. We sure do. That live room runs from 9 a.m. Eastern time till around 11 a.m. Eastern. And then we jump into our elite room from 11 till around 12:15 Eastern. Usually sign off when I start this update. And then we've got one of our traders out in Hawaii covering the European session. So we've got also market coverage from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time as well. So overall, from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. Eastern, cover that U.S. cash open to the European cash close. And then we catch the European open as well for London time around 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time. So great questions in there. Thank you guys for popping those through. Now we finished that quote board. Let's take a look at Bright. A lot of people come in with that, with that frame of mind. And what we have in our live room, a lot of people don't really know how to do. So might be a bit lost if you're coming in with your own style, just jumping into the trading room. We don't really give signals. We're of the opinion that teaching people how to fish is a lot more beneficial in the long run, both for them and for ourselves, for the company, than giving them signals and teaching them how to catch or giving them the fish for the day. So a lot of what happens in the room is order flow. We trade order flow primarily, and so we use inventory heat maps, DOM, we use range bars, footprint charts, etc. So if you're familiar with that and you want to check out the room, by all means. But a little disclosure that people that tend to come into the room for the first time, even experienced traders, usually there's a little bit of a learning curve before you can start catching on and seeing what we're seeing in there. Samir, the live room is not accessible to anyone. You have got to be a pro or elite subscriber in order to get access to the live rooms. Great questions, guys. So let me just get back to the charts here quickly, and we will. I'll round up the questions at the end. At the end of this, I'll just go through the charts here, give you guys some of the levels we're watching for, and then we will shoot from there. So our pivot chart on crude oil. This is really the only chart that we have that is time-based. This is a 1-hour bar chart, and reason why we use that is because you can't really calculate pivots on these range bar charts. So here's a 60-minute chart, and what you are seeing is that the overall larger term trend is still bearish. We were mentioning, I think yesterday or the day before, there was a previous swing high here on the 1-hour time frame. I was kind of looking for it to press back up into there, get a little fake breakout for the continuation lower, but we never mustered the strength to get back up to that bid. We kind of held the support level, bounced off, and held that level until we collapsed below that yesterday. And we traded, that was a pivot S1, S2, S3. So we traded into the S3 yesterday. And then overnight, let's see if I can zoom this up a little bit more. Overnight, we kind of pressed lower and then moved up here in that session. We kind of came into those previous 1 hour swing highs, and you can see we didn't quite breach them before rolling back under that pivot. We've kind of broken below that pivot. The market's really flirting with that level today, the 60 or 51.95. Pop their head above it, it comes back below, pop it back again, back below. And now we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 hourly closes, or rather 3 hourly closes below it. And this is just starting here. It's 12:18. So we're about 20 minutes into this hourly one. But as long as that pivot remains resistance, 51.95, as long as the sellers hold that level and we stay below that open, we can look for potential more downside into those current session lows, overnight lows coming in at the 51.27s. So that's what we'll be looking for here on crude, back above that pivot. We might see a press back up above that open into those, that's the overnight high at the 50. What level is that? At the 52.25s. So above the pivot, we can see them run into those 52.25s. And then I see those 52.40s kind of holding as resistance there. But for the majority, you're kind of seeing, wicks to the downside. So this has got me thinking we might be trying to press up here. But looking at the chart, we're back in a level where we should see sellers starting to step on it. And that's what we're kind of going to watch for. So downside is still the right side overall. You don't want to be shorting the lows. You want to be shorting the rips. And we're kind of at the higher end right now where we could be seeing some value for shorts to start entering. And I'll take a look at that in a second after we covered the SPOOs pivot chart here. So the SPOOs overall, longer term time frame, bullish. However, we came up into those 2880s in the mid-May and kind of been selling off since then. Lower lows, lower highs. That pattern super good line there. That pattern kind of broke here on June 4th. We did get a breakout above the 2760s, and we've seen buyers really starting to press into the market. We've now come into a level of, strong level here. We broke the 2800. That was a huge level for the SPOOs. And now, so long as we remain above that 2800, I think the buyers can start pressing this thing back up. And my next key level based on the daily time frame is the 2880s. That's where I think, the buyers will be targeting. I would check out our Facebook page as well. We've posted some analysis with our thoughts on that front. But what we're seeing here on this 1 hour time frame, market structure is starting to shift bullish. We are seeing higher lows, higher highs. However, we did come into R1, and this session is looking very, very similar to yesterday's session. Kind of came into R1 during Globex, sold off of it into those session lows, and then pressed back up into that R1 where we consolidated and then rallied overnight. Seeing kind of something similar here. Came into the R1, faded off of the R1. Where did it come into? That pivot. Now we're back up at that R1, and I'm seeing kind of what we saw yesterday. I don't know if we're going to rip up higher here, but this has got me kind of thinking, we are going to press upside so long as that R1 remains as resistance, as long as the sellers are defending that during the cash open. That can be a good level of resistance, and that kind of lines up with your overnight highs as well. So SPOOs are still bullish. However, at the moment, they're at a level where we have seen sellers press in. So not really looking for any longs up there. I'll just want to see a bit of a rotation back down before we look to pick anything up. So let's take a look now at the range bar charts. So here's crude oil. There we go. So there's our crude oil chart there, and what you are seeing on the overall time frame, or not the overall time frame, but the overall chart here. This is our 10-tick range bar chart. And what you are seeing is this yellow line is the pit open, 9 a.m. open here on crude. You can see overnight, a little bit choppy, couldn't quite break these previous highs. We saw rotation lower into that support, pressed back up off of that level. 1, 2, 3 rotations, opened up here, a little sell-off into the bottom end of that range. And then crude kind of popped back higher right into that open, sold off. And so really, since we saw that, we're looking for rotations back into that VWAP to hold for, for a potential move lower. And that's kind of what we saw here. VWAP was holding. So we kind of saw this little breakout as a fake, fake out higher. We were seeing a structure forming here, little fake out to the upside, little deviation back within the range. Once it came back and held that VWAP, shorts were on. And that's kind of what you've been seeing here. Every press back up to the VWAP, we've seen sellers stepping in and moving this market lower. So recently pressed off of those overnight lows at the 51.27s back into that VWAP range. And what I'm seeing here is kind of on the session, each time it's poked its head above that VWAP, we've seen it move back down. So that's what I'll be watching for here. It's kind of testing that level at the moment. We get back below it, back below level, a little rotation up into that previous day close VWAP. You can look to qualify a short, press this thing back down to that overnight low. This will be a key level to watch out for as well, since we've had support here twice. If it comes back in here and you got short in that level, look to take a partial out right around there and hold the rest for a potential break for a flush of that zone into these overnight lows here, or rather previous day lows around these 50, 68s. Also seeing some bids showing up down there. So that could also be a target for the sellers if we can hold this VWAP and press lower. Alternatively, just not looking to buy this thing here. If we press back up here, that could be another potential level to short. But I'll be staying on the short side for the better part of today's session. Could look for a potential long if it gets back down here and holds that level. And we see these bids starting to press up higher and chase into that price, as offers ideally are not pressing lower. So that's kind of what we'd look for a long in crude. But at the moment, short side is the right side. S&P 500. Here is the session so far today. Opened up right around these 29s. And we're kind of looking for a press into that overnight high and for it to rotate back down and kind of find some support. What we got, however, was just a quick flush off of the open, a little press back up into our zone here, and a couple people in the room shorted that level here. However, we were kind of watching this, and it was a little bit dicey. We were looking for a continuation low. However, we saw this thing trade into that opening range low and just caught a nice quick bid off of that. So once it came back above, tested that opening range high, we're looking to qualify along around that open retest. And some of us caught it along. I personally got stopped out on the low tick before that rip higher. So that is what it is. Right around 11:44, right around this time, where is it? Wow. Right around this time here, we had a squawk come out from White House aide Schlapped, which is why we subtly titled this thing "Stocks Get Schlapped" on White House comments regarding Mexico tariffs, because the White House aide Schlapped came on and squawked that Mexico has to do more in order for these tariffs not to get applied on June the 10th. And so market kind of took that bearish, and we saw this nice little sell-off right back to guess where? Previous launch pad higher. Came in here, a couple of rotations, and now we're starting to press up. So market's still choppy here. However, what I am seeing is this 27 level, your previous day close, is acting as a nice support. You can see each time that we've tried it to break below it, we are finding support. We are finding buyers stepping in here. And so at the moment, we're kind of stuck really between that previous day close and this range here in those 33s, 34s. Just looking how this thing plays out. To be quite frank, I'm not really looking for any more positions today. You could look to kind of fade this buy this range up here. But at the moment, I think I'm personally going to be done for the day. I wouldn't really be looking for any trades unless we get back below, the current session low or the current US session high here. Until one of those get traded, we're kind of in the middle of that range, and you're more likely to get sliced and diced here trying to pick a trade than you are for, waiting, protecting your capital, and waiting for a high probability trade to kind of slap you in the face. That's generally what you need to see, especially as we come into these summer months. I mean, technically we are in summer. However, because of this volatility on the back of the trade wars with China, these tariffs with Mexico, we've been getting a little bit more volatility than usual in these months. So that has been great. However, just be cognizant of the fact that we are in summer months, and what SPOOs tend to do in summer is they like to range for a good part of the session, get everyone frustrated, get a quick move in one direction, and then kind of rip the other way. So summertime is very range bound trading unless we get good volatility on the back of, geopolitical, I wouldn't say conflict, but what we're seeing with these US-China trade wars, with these tariffs, anything on the back of that, you're going to get volatility. But when we don't have any squawks with that regards, expect a range-bound SPOOs. And that's kind of what we're seeing on today's session. So that's what we've got for you there. It's kind of bearish below these 34s, bullish above these, 25s, 27s that previous day close. This is really a big level. If that level gives in today's session, the previous day close and this opening range low, I think we can spill back down to those 2814s right around here and potentially down to the 2800s. However, if we do hold that level, I think we're going to consolidate going into the Asian session, and then during Globex, we'll probably open up the upside. And then when we come back in tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be surprised to see SPOOs and the other equity futures indexes hanging around R1 as they have these last 2 days. So that is basically what we've got for you as far as these markets are concerned. I hope you guys are enjoying these updates. Seeing a little bit more interaction in here, which is great. If you guys are typing in questions, I will get to those once I finish up with this analysis. So please do throw those in. Don't worry. I see them. I'll get to them. And just the last thing I'm going to do before I take the remainder of those questions is to show you guys the TRADEPRO Performance Index. So again, if you guys are new or if you guys are returning viewers, this is basically our benchmark of how our community is doing. And the results today kind of speak to what the market conditions were like, right? So just about half of the room finished green, 36% were up, 13% were flat, and the remaining 50% were down. So not the strongest numbers on today's session. And that happens. We've been doing quite well really these last 2 weeks. If I go back to the end of May, we had one kind of salty day on the 31st where the room was more red than they were green, but we haven't seen that really since I think March or February or March. And so coming into June, we finished May off with 66% green. June so far looking pretty good. Today's number, kind of weighing us down. However, it's been a strong start to the month, and we look to finish off the first week of June quite strong. We do have NFP and labor numbers out of the States tomorrow morning, so we're expecting a bit of volatility on the back of that. And we'll be trading that event, the NFP event, with you guys in the room for our elite team. And then we'll sign back in for the remainder of our traders into the day trading room, and we will catch that US Open into European close. So this is basically how the traders are doing. 50% on the day, as mentioned, not the strongest numbers. Still proud of the team. Very proud of our traders. We've got a good mix of people in the community now. And over the last month or so, the community's really, really started progressing. And we've got a real happy mix of experienced traders, newer traders, and traders, in the midpoint of their journeys, not necessarily consistently profitable, but also not losing money. And, right at that cornerstone moment where you're not losing money, you're not making money. And it just takes a little bit of being in an environment to change that dial and get you into consistent profitability. And we've seen the room really killing it. Our milestones, daily milestones are getting hit. We've got members hitting their first 10 points on SPOOs, members hitting their first $500-$600 day on oil, and a lot of success all around, and really, really encouraging to see, and very, very good as far as these results for us. So really happy to see that. With that being said, let me switch back to the camera now that I'm done with all of these charts. And let's take these questions here quickly for you guys. All right. So we've got no signals. I can catch fish. Awesome. All right. Yeah, Bright. If that's the situation, then by all means, you can come check it in. We don't really use scanners. We trade primarily the equity index futures, crude oil. We've got a couple people in the room that like to play with others. Some people like to play softs, but for the majority of the session, we are covering the equity index futures, primarily your SPOOs, your NASDAQ, your Dow, sometimes the Russell. We kind of watch it as correlation, not necessarily trading it. And then crude, those are the main markets. We got some people watching gold, some watching currency futures as well. So overall, great environment. And, you know, equity futures and crude oil are our primary markets in there. Let's see here. William. We're feeling it down here in Mexico. Yeah, I can imagine, brother. Can you show your studies list for your 10 tick charts? The studies, that's the secret sauce. Can't share that on YouTube. Can't share that on YouTube, but just a quick overview. Basically, the main studies are, you know, session levels, previous day highs, overnight lows, et cetera, et cetera. VWAPs, Globex VWAP, US session VWAP, and then a couple of other goodies on there that we got to keep for our members. But good question. Good question. All right, that seems to be all the questions in there. So that's going to be a wrap for today's update. Really appreciate you guys showing up, spending the time with us here. One final thing, again, make sure to comment below. It is George's birthday today. Wish him a happy birthday. I know he likes to read those YouTube comments, so bring a bright smile to his face if you guys can take a moment out of your day, pop in the comments there, wishing him a happy birthday. What should the team do for George's birthday? What should we get him as a gift? What do you guys think? Send those in the comments below, and we'll see what we can do. Till tomorrow, guys. If you will be trading, 3 rules. Good luck. That's not a rule. Remain patient, remain diligent, and remain disciplined. Until tomorrow, good luck and good trading, guys. This is Mark coming at you guys from Toronto, Ontario, signing out here. Take care.